We begin with the drama on Capitol Hill. Tuesday is back to work day for the House of Representatives, and with 11 working days until the end of the fiscal year, they don't have a moment to waste. Congress is under pressure to reach some sort of agreement to fund the government by midnight on September 30th. But getting to that agreement is going to be a heavy lift. The ultra-conservative House Freedom Caucus has laid out a list of conditions for its support, not only for a budget deal, but also for a stopgap measure like a continuing resolution that would temporarily avoid a government shutdown until an agreement can be reached. Their demands include bolstering border security, addressing what it calls the weaponization of the FBI and DOJ, and what they also call woke policies at the Pentagon. You'll recall that Georgia Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene vows not to vote for any funding measure unless her list of demands are met, one that includes beginning impeachment proceedings against President Biden before a vote on the budget. But when it comes to launching baseless impeachment proceedings against President Biden, Congressman Matt Gaetz went one step further. During an interview with a conservative radio host this week, the Florida congressman, whose present vote on the 15th ballot made it possible for Kevin McCarthy to finally win the Speaker's gavel, warned, quote, "If Speaker McCarthy stands in our way, he may not have the job long." Once again, Speaker McCarthy has to figure out how to do what's best for the country while also saving his gavel. And if past his prologue, it's going to be messy and painful for all of us. Joining me now is the chair of the Democratic Policy and Communications Committee, Colorado Congressman Joe Neguse. He was also an impeachment manager during Donald Trump's second impeachment. Congressman, welcome back to the Sunday show. Given the House Freedom Caucus's list of demands, how close are we to seeing a shutdown?
Well, it's good to be with you, Jonathan, and thanks for having me on. I think you articulated the stakes well, and unfortunately, I think we are very close to that potential outcome. I think Speaker McCarthy faces a binary choice of whether to work with Democrats in good faith to fund the government to address the needs of the American people, or capitulating to the far right wing of his caucus and agreeing to the outlandish demands that they have made. It seems clear that there is a contingency in the House Republican caucus that is fixated on shutting down the government. There have been many who have been unabashed about their desire for a government shutdown. And of course, others, as you articulated, have made clear their reckless demands in exchange for any kind of vote to continue funding operations of the federal government, which is deeply problematic, of course, and would have disastrous economic impacts for the American people. Unfortunately, as you said, past is prologue. We've seen this movie before. We, as you know, were here just a few short months ago due to the manufactured crisis of their own making that House Republicans had created with respect to the debt ceiling. And unfortunately, it seems as though we are barreling towards a similar outcome in this instance. My hope is that cooler heads will prevail and that House Republicans will do the right thing, work with us in good faith to fund the operations of the federal government, but ultimately time will tell.
Right. But Congressman, as you and I both know, and as I mentioned in the intro, the demands for President Biden's impeachment are many and emphatic, especially that threat against Speaker McCarthy from Congressman Gaetz. Will McCarthy have to go along?
I mean, again, I think that's a question best posed to Speaker McCarthy and to the House Republicans. I think that you are right. I mean, the notion of tying this baseless impeachment inquiry to the funding of our federal government, I think, is deeply reckless for any number of reasons. And of course, there's no evidence or constitutional basis to pursue the course that they clearly are fixated on pursuing with respect to an impeachment inquiry of the president. But nonetheless, it's clear that if Speaker McCarthy doesn't agree to that and capitulate, that it will be very difficult to get a funding bill through the House. And I think that is symptomatic of the way in which House Republicans have run the House for the better part of the last 9 months of this year. We've seen this again, time and time again, and it has real impacts. As you know, Jonathan, a government shutdown would be disastrous. We remember, of course, the partial government shutdown back in 2019, my first term in the United States Congress, a shutdown that cost the American economy roughly $11 billion. It would increase the deficit. It would implicate core services for millions of Americans across our country, coast to coast. It is an outcome that is unconscionable and one that we should be avoiding. And yet, House Republicans, unlike their counterparts in the United States Senate, as I said, seem fixated on driving us towards this government shutdown. It is reckless, it's extreme, and it's symptomatic of, unfortunately, I think, a party that is just not prepared to govern, and if anything, has a disdain for doing the common functions of government that Americans rely on.
I want to remind our viewers that box you see in your lower right corner of your screen is coming to us live from Hanoi, Vietnam. We're awaiting a press conference with the President of the United States, and as soon as that begins, we will bring it to you live. But Congressman, you were an impeachment manager for Trump's second impeachment for his role in the January 6th insurrection. I would love your thoughts on the Trump case that's underway in Georgia.
Well, as you know, Jonathan, and you've covered this extensively over the past several weeks, there are serious crimes that are alleged within that particular indictment. And of course, it's important for all of us to, allow the process to play out as we have with respect to the special counsel's investigation and the indictments of the former president in federal court as well. Certainly, I will be watching as the proceedings unfold, as will other Americans, I suspect. But look, as you know, I was an impeachment manager during the second impeachment of the former president. I was in the House with my colleagues on the House floor on January 6th, the worst attack on our nation's capital since the War of 1812. From my perspective, I think it's important that we allow these processes to play out so that the American people can have faith in their government and know that something like this will ultimately never happen again. The peaceful transfer of power is sacrosanct, has been sacrosanct for the better part of the last 230 some odd years. And obviously, the former president broke that sacrosanct commitment because of the course of his actions on January 6th. So again, I think it's important for us to let the process play out. I'm concerned about the effort by House Republicans to interfere with respect to that criminal prosecution, as well as the others criminal prosecutions of the former president. And I think that's something that should concern every American.
Colorado Congressman Joe Neguse, as always, thank you for coming to the Sunday Show.
Thank you.